Welcome to the OTA podcast where we discuss everything performance training. I'm Coach Chris Barnard. Let's get into it. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to OTA Podcast. I'm Coach Chris Barnard. And for today's video, I want to talk about a discussion I've been having with a lot of my athletes recently, and that's everything in-season training. So there's a couple things I want to touch on because I find myself having conversation with athletes year-round, depending on the sport, about in-season training. And there's a couple misconceptions, and I just want to be able to go over those real quick. Number one, is it important? 100% it is. And in fact, I think that it is one of the most important edges that we continue to see results year after year with our athletes is because we're able to educate them on the importance of in-season training. Not only are they able to develop all that speed, power, and strength, and then essentially be able to maintain it, but be able to maintain it throughout the entire season, right? So that the same speed, power, strength they came in and felt great with in camp, they have at the end of the season. That's number one. So the results don't drop off, right? Their skill can stay the same and their skill will actually sharpen because they're doing that thing every day. For instance, they're playing basketball, they're playing baseball, they're playing football. So their skill is going to continue to increase in season. When it comes to their actual performance, their strength, their ability to resist injury or prevent injury, I should say, all those things are going to continue as long as they maintain in season. So it's 100% important. And what I tell guys when I'm having that conversation is, do you stop training your skill in the off season and only train in the weight room? And obviously 10 times out of 10 is going to be no, right? They still go get on the field and run routes. They still get in the batting cages. They still hone in on their actual craft. So when it comes to your actual physical performance, it's no different when you're in season. Next point is the biggest misconception when it comes to in-season training. See, I have to shift the paradigm of an athlete. And what I mean by that is I have to make them understand that approaching your in-season training is nothing like your off-season training. See, a lot of these guys, especially our culture in our weight room, is they want to get after it. They get excited to be able to come, exert themselves, spend their energy, go all out, whether that be sprinting, jumping, lifting, right? And they think once they get in season, whether that be through the youth, high school, professional levels, that those training sessions and that same approach needs to be there for in season. You see, the best in-season program is the one that an athlete can adhere to. So you really have to factor in all these different things. And what I mean by that is you have to factor in stress management as a totality. What sport are they playing? How many times are they playing per week? How many times are they playing per month? How much playing time is that actual athlete playing, right? And what the degree of that actual sport is. You see, because a football athlete is going to run, is going to have more collisions, is going to cut way more than, say, a baseball athlete. And it's just what it is. So each sport and each athlete, and then even when you get to the high school level and not at the professional level, where it's their job, obviously, you're dealing with athletes that have time constraints. And this is going to be things such as school, homework, practice. They might go to the batting cage and work with their skill coach. They might have a job, right? These are all things that you're going to have to find to balance. So again, going back to that biggest thing, yes, number one, you have to have some level of it. It's that important. And number two, it's just a matter of adhering to who that athlete is, how much total work they're performing, and then also essentially being able to find the time to be able to do it. What's up, coaches? Real quickly, let me go ahead and introduce you to Performance Coach U certification. Now, this is the certification/course that I put together for coaches who want to train athletes and not only get results, but also maximize profits in the private sector. The problem that I saw with a lot of these courses and certifications out there for coaches was that they provided a lot of information and not a lot of application. So I wanted to pull back the covers over 10 plus years of experience and show you the ins and outs of actually being in the trenches so that you get maximum results while also scaling your business. So if you're interested in this, go ahead and check out the link down below and you can get more information. Now, what I'd like to go into is just kind of some of the common practices that we use that we find are recurring in our off-season training. So number one is we usually shift to a total body type structure. And really what a total body allows us to be able to balance out those movements across the in season, but also allows us to mitigate stress. For instance, if I went into an upper and lower body split, if I'm just hammering an athlete in their upper body and they got 2, 3 different pressing motions, then we go into like an isolated shoulder, and then we do maybe like an isolated tricep, they're going to be extremely fatigued and probably going to be sore. It's also going to drain that nervous system tremendously. So I'm not trying to break down the tissue like I'm doing a bodybuilding session and trying to stimulate hypertrophy. Really, what I'm trying to do is essentially make sure that we check those boxes on performing that movement under load. So by doing that with total body, I can mitigate some of that stress, right? And they're not as sore, they're not as banged up, they're not as beat up. I can split and balance out those primal patterns, those basic fundamental patterns over the course of 1, 2, 3, even up to 6 days. Now, here's the next one that is really big, and it really depends on the sport. It really depends on the athlete, is being able to select how you spread out that balance of movement. You see, I have some athletes, this could be in the same sport, let's take baseball, who prefer to have 2 longer training days and say, hey, just give me it all in 2 days. It's going to be about 45 minutes. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to work up to, let's say, that 85% on that movement. Boom, make sure I check my box, done with it. And then I come back a day or 2 later, and then I hit my second one, and they want to check that box. And then I have other athletes that play a lot. And essentially what they need, and what they prefer actually is to have, say, something over the course of 7 days. They have 4 workouts that total about 4 to 5 workouts that total about 15 minutes a piece. Let's just use that as a round number. Sometimes it could be 5, sometimes it could be 30. But in any event, they know that over the course of the next week, depending on how I feel and how my week's going and my travel schedule and all these other things, that they just need to check those 4 boxes. And what some of them do is, if they really feel good and they have a day off and they just want to get in and get a sweat in, they might pair 2 of those days up. As long as they check those 4 boxes over the course of that week, then we know that we're able to maintain a sufficient amount of strength, prevent injury, and keep their performance high. So going back to it, I know I'm sharing some tactics that we use, but the biggest thing is I think for coaches and athletes is just being able to shift the paradigm as a whole and getting accumulated to training in a year round. And it doesn't have to be the same approach that you have in the off season, but I promise you, once you stack and develop in the off season, maintain, and then be able to build upon that last off season in the next off season, that's where you're really going to see the edge come. This is where you're really going to see, as opposed to ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, where you gain all this performance, strength, power, speed, drop down in the in season because you're not maintaining it, and then have to start from square one, and maybe only starting from a little bit better as opposed to a lot. You're going to start to see that you're basically doing the same thing over and over again, and we're wasting time in the beginning of our off season when we could be actually getting more and building on top of what we built the previous year. So it's extremely important that you understand that it's just what the athlete can adhere to, work around their schedule, figure out their total load, total work capacity, and base the in-season training around that. But make sure you're checking that box on the essential things that are going to keep them healthy, keep them strong, keep them powerful year round, so that you can continue to develop elite athletes. So I hope that helps, guys. Just wanted to make sure that I plugged that in because I wanted to make sure that we can start to shift our mind about how we train in season. So see you guys in the next one. I hope this helped you guys out.